I won over $4 million playing tournament poker. That $4 million is gross winnings. That's the number gamblers love to tell people, love to say out loud, and love to say to themselves. The honest number for me personally is the net. After years of travel, online subscriptions, internet bills, hotel bills, lunch bills, all the things that come along with playing poker as a profession, the profit is way lower. It's hard to track it down exactly. I got some numbers for you, but I think I made or netted around $750,000. The gap is between the number that sounds good and the number that's true. And that's the whole disease in one sentence. And I'm telling you about my experience. I made money as a gambler because I did one thing really well. I did not gamble on anything else. I did not put money in slot machines. I did not play other games because I knew those games are rigged. I am one of those very rare people, and I'm not trying to gloat, who actually made a living playing online poker. There's many out there, but in terms of percentage-wise, it is way less than even 1%. And I am telling you, you cannot win in gambling. Turn on any sports game on any given day. Count how many seconds actually go by before you are faced with some form of gambling ad or somebody telling you to lay a bet. The odds are thrown across the broadcast. These gambling apps are the sponsors. The halftime analysis is being brought to you by some other fucking gambling site. Now, all the professional sports used to, at least the big four, used to harp on this idea that gambling would destroy the integrity of their sport. And now, kind of sickeningly, they are in bed with all the sports books or all the gambling apps. And it happened fast. In 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the federal ban, and in a few years, legal sports betting went from under $5 billion a year to somewhere over $165 billion a year. Up here in Canada, Ontario opened its market in 2022 and has already pulled in over $10 billion. That's not a trend. That's an extraction industry built around the one thing men already love. I am not here to wag my finger. I'm not here to condemn and give some moral bullshit lecture. Young men in particular, and most men, like risk. The appetite for risk, for competition, for testing yourself, that's not a defect. That's one of the most useful things about being a young man. So just remember, this isn't shitting on these natural drives. The problem is not the drive. The problem is that all these companies have figured out how to harvest your natural instinct, and they're aiming it right at your nervous system. So here's how I actually made money, and I'm not trying to promote online poker. I'm just trying to tell you that I made money not by gambling, not by playing against the house. Poker is not gambling in the same way that slot machine or even sports betting is gambling. In the long run, in poker, the money flows like a vacuum from the bad players who make a lot of mistakes to all the good players who make less and less mistakes. It is like just the money just gets sucked up. The house does not play, but the house does take a small cut, what we all call the rake, or what the house calls the rake. And then they let the players play against each other and get into psychological warfare and a little bit of risk reward. And of course, there is bad luck in poker. There is good luck in poker. But over the long run, the odds and the skillfulness of the better players always wins. So if you are better than the people you're playing against over the long run, that is not luck. That is not gambling. That is shrewd, expert decision making. This is why I was good at poker, is because I knew that if I made bad decisions, I would lose. And I knew if I made good decisions, I would win. Aside from that, I had many problems in my life. I was definitely unemployable at the time. And if I didn't make it work in poker, I was in big trouble. So I took it extremely seriously. I knew where my edge was, and I did my very best to stay in my lane. I did not gamble on other things like sports, like blackjack, although you can win in blackjack, but then you get kicked out. I didn't bet on anything else. Here's the reminder again. If you are playing against the house, you will lose. There's no amount of information and arrogance and insight that you think you have about a sports team that is enough to beat the odds making expertise of the math actuaries and of these sites and of these casinos. You cannot win. Crazy thing about casinos is if you are counting cards in blackjack and you're winning, they will kick you out. The only games that they let you keep playing are the ones that you cannot win. And that should tell you everything you need to know about gambling. I'm going to say it again. The only games that they let you keep playing are the ones that you cannot win. Again, I played the only game you can win because you're playing against other people, and I let the other ones go. And I'm not trying to be self-righteous here. I'm trying to help you understand that this gambling shit is insane, and your brain is being harvested and manipulated, and you are deluding yourself into thinking that you're winning or you can win. So here's one record I could pull up from the internet. I even had to pay SharkScope, I think it is, to get access to this. So you can see it's American/Canadian dollars. I played 11,362 tournaments. My average profit was $31. My average stake was $100. My ROI was 27%, and I profited $356,796 on full tilt poker. Yes, the full tilt poker that came crashing down because of the greed of the gambling degenerates who were running the poker site. So you can see here as well, where's the rake? Oh, it's covered up here. I paid about $77,000 in rake to full tilt poker over my career. Crazy. Just for the privilege of being allowed to play and bet against other human beings. So again, in poker, you can win, but you're also fighting against the rake. And that's why so many people are break even or slightly worse. It's almost impossible to find the PokerStars statistics these days, and you have to do all kinds of shit to prove. But I do have my little final table W Coop thing here. I don't know if you can see that. I chopped one of those tournaments with someone who was pretty awesome. Well, there are many poker players out there who gamble like total degenerates. I know many of the guys that I was around, the ones that were really stable, they did not gamble on anything else because, of course, as I've been saying, you cannot win. And the whole game is rigged to manipulate you and your brain. I get so sickened by all of this gambling advertisement because I know how manipulative it is. And I'm just trying to help you realize how much you are being manipulated by all of this crap and by your own delusion and your own perhaps ego and desire to win and to prove to your friends and to bet your friends and all this other kind of stuff. Okay, I am not great with the math. I'm not the right person to talk to about this. I am not the one to walk through all the formulas. I'm a poker player who's pretty good at math, but I am not a mathematician. If you genuinely care about the math behind these gambling sites, I'm sure there's lots of information out there. Good luck. Go check it out. The shape, the way these gambling sites and the betting structures are set up is so that you lose. Every bet you make, the sports book is not betting against you as an equal. They set the price. They build the margin into that price. It is called the VIG. It's a hold. It means the odds that you are getting are always slightly worse than the true odds of the thing that they are proposing to you to bet on. Just enough. Doesn't really impact you on one specific bet necessarily. You feel lucky when you win. Perhaps you feel unlucky when you lose. And you never quite notice that the whole table is tilted slightly against you, no matter what. And at the bottom, ching, 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 all that money's fallen onto the floor into their pocket. Over one wager on one game, you can't notice that you're losing. Okay, but over thousands of bets or hundreds of bets or tens of bets, that gap is bigger and bigger, and the gravity is sucking your money down into a hole. That's what expected value means. In poker, expected value is relatively easy to calculate. In this world, you are negative all the time. Do the same bet 1,000 times in the sports betting world, and you are guaranteed to lose. It's not because you're unlucky. It's because you're a customer. You're a custy, as we would say in the drug game. The house doesn't need to beat you today, tomorrow, but it will beat you the day after and the day after that. It just needs you to keep playing, because the longer you play, the more certain that the math will catch up to you and that you will lose. Time is the house's weapon, not luck. So here's part of the industry that is often not acknowledged or talked about. We all know, or you should know, that the house always wins. In one study or analysis of betting on one NFL season, 60% of all the people who bet generated just 1% of the revenue. Most people are basically a rounding error and are just losing little bits here and there. One report came out saying that the real money, the big money, 70% of a single company's profit came from less than 1% of the users, often called the whales or the fish. These are the people who are really in trouble and who are really being manipulated. So the business model is not everybody loses a little all the time, but they do need to keep the masses entertained and enough to stick around so there is money being generated. But the majority of the profits come from a smaller amount of people who lose a lot of money. The other sick part about this is many people in that 1% or small percentage of people who are losing a lot of money are in complete denial or continue to lie to themselves that they're going to somehow win it back or that it's not as bad as it actually is. Gambling has always been around. But what has happened now, or what is the big significant change these days? This thing right here. Oh, the phone. Back in the day, you'd have to go to a bookie or a casino, or until Proline came out in Ontario, you'd have to go to the store to make a bet. There was friction, there was distance between the impulse to go and bet and actually acting out the wager. And I would wager, I would bet that that gap probably saved a lot of people from betting. But that is gone now. Now, 90% of bets are placed on a phone. That is insane. More than half of those are live, real live action bets placed while the game is happening on all these little things that are offered to you for wagers. Open an app, and it's not just who wins, it's who throws the next strike, who hits the next pitch, who catches the next touchdown. It just goes on and on and on. Tiny bets all the time throughout the game about all kinds of shit that you are not going to win at. And I hope that you understand that is not an accident of technology. It is designed. The people who build this technology or these apps, they are reading your mind, manipulating your God-given instinct for thrill seeking, for pushing the boundaries. Reason a betting app feels the way a slot machine feels is that it's built on the same principle. It's this variable reward thing, that the same thing with social media. And it is the single most powerful way that scientists or psychologists have found to get people to repeat a behavior, rewarding people on a random, unpredictable sequence. And the brain gets so hooked on just seeking more and more of this. That's why you keep refreshing your apps. That's why you keep putting money in the slot machine. That's why you keep refreshing the betting app throughout the game. You are seeking novelty and unpredictability, and your brain thinks you're cool or going to be safe or going to be successful if you can predict this unpredictable future. Then there's the trick borrowed straight from the casino floor. losses disguised as wins. The 5-leg parlay, where 4 legs hit, oh, and 1 misses, and oh, you don't win that big bet. Flash of the app lights up and tells you, oh, you were so close to that big score. It almost feels like you won. Keep going. Next time you'll win, I promise. It's crazy. Almost winning fires the same reward circuitry that actual winning does. You are being trained and conditioned to keep going. And the thing is, where it stops being a sports conversation, this is where it all stops being about sports and gambling and about the hard, painful truth of human behavior. Gambling is a addiction, a serious problematic behavior alongside drug use and other behavioral addictions. Same dopamine reward systems are hijacked and you get sucked in no matter whether you like it or not. The thing about this gambling and with this phone and these apps is that you don't get stinky breath, you don't smell of drugs. You can hide, you can get your fix anywhere at any time. You could be doing it beside your kids while watching a movie. You probably do, a lot of you, and that's unfortunate, and I hope you stop doing that. You do it at their baseball game. You do it at work. You do it in a meeting. You do it while driving your car as well, I assume. And now it's on everyone's phone everywhere. It is crazy. It's crazy. It's so manipulative, and it's fucking gotta stop. At least the obsessant advertising all over our sports games. It's gotta stop. And okay, fine. I give in. Most people are fine. Most people only lose a little bit. Most people are not ruining their lives. There is some research that measures once legalization of all this betting started to happen, credit scores got worse, bankruptcies went up, savings reduced. And it's hard to pinpoint this exactly, but we all know that this is a problem, in particular for young men, who there are lots of other problems going on in the world about them as well. One study found that for every dollar people put into sports betting, they put almost $1 less into their savings and their investments. They're not betting their fun money. They're betting their future and our economy along with it. And The Lancet, one of the most serious medical journals on the earth, flagged that a huge share of the harm doesn't even come from diagnosed addicts. It comes from the enormous gray zone of ordinary people who never call themselves a problem gambler, quietly bleeding out all their little loose change extra money. That's the iceberg. The diagnosed gambling addict is just the tip everyone can see. Underneath is a massive population of guys who are just a little behind, a little anxious, a little obsessed, a little stuck on a screen, chasing a feeling and not hitting rock bottom, just slowly feeling worse and worse and having less and less good interactions with the world. As I've been talking about a lot, this is aimed at young men. It is not random. Okay, young men are the bullseye here. So here's some numbers on how hard young men are actually being targeted with this stuff. It's stunning. Studies of young people find they're recalling something like 10 to 14 sports betting ads a week on social media alone. That's before the broadcast, before the game starts, before the podcast, before the this, before the that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and it works. The research shows that exposure to this marketing actually predicts higher problem gambling. The ads are not decoration. They are a delivery mechanism for this problem. The harm is landing right where the marketing is being targeted. From the American Institute for Boys and Men, young men under 45, especially in lower income areas, are seeing roughly double the average increase in bankruptcies. The people with the most to lose are getting hit the hardest. So here's the question I keep coming back to, and I want to ask it carefully. because this is where people get it wrong. Why young men? Why are we so susceptible to this specific thing? The easy answer, the lazy, slightly insulting answer is because young guys are reckless and stupid. I don't buy that. I don't think that. I actually think the opposite. I know the opposite. The thing that's being manipulated here is the healthiest thing about young men. Young men are wired to take risks, to compete, to test themselves against the world, to chase status, to push boundaries and find out what they're made of. That's not a malfunction. That's evolutionary. That is the point. Every society needs a cohort of young people willing to go to the edge, because that's where you find out what's possible. Teenagers push limits because they're supposed to. We need to push limits. We need men to do these things. We just need them to not be manipulated by this gambling industry that is so evil. Drive is good. The drive is necessary. The tragedy is that we live in a moment where a lot of that healthy energy is being pushed and absorbed in the wrong direction, into this gap or into this lack of meaning that young men have, has come this gambling industry, feeding a need for risk and competition and status and all that kind of stuff. The last thing I'm going to say here is that we need role models. We have cast aside the traditional healthy masculine role models of the past. When they disappear, when they get shit on by our culture for years and decades, this is what fills the void. So this drive you have for risk and competition and all that stuff is genuinely beautiful and healthy and strong. It's just that you're being totally manipulated by this gambling madness. And I hope that you can see that. Okay, so here's some questions that you can ask yourself. Are you chasing losses? Betting more to win back what you lost? Are you hiding it? Shaving the number when someone asks you how much you've lost or won? Is your mood riding on a game, up when it hits, wrecked when it doesn't? Are you betting money you actually need for other things? I think you already know the answers. You don't need a quiz. You need honesty. Second, this isn't about willpower. This is about manipulation and engineering. This is an addiction. People with PhDs and billions of dollars are harvesting your nervous system to make them rich. The really sad thing is that it's so hard to be honest and to ask for help. The shame is a lot. The shame is painful. You cannot win at gambling. Just to repeat, okay? The reason I won playing poker is because I knew I could win and I was not playing against the house. If you are playing against the house, you will lose. If you can rein in those fantasies of money and prestige and thinking you're good and thinking you beat the system, I hope you can do that, because that's what you need to do to stop engaging in this madness. I hope you found this video helpful. I tried to make sense here. I'm trying to use these slides and research and trying to put together these complex topics, if you will, into concise, meaningful, hopefully helpful content. So like the video, subscribe. My name is Mike Stroh. This is the Starts With Me channel. I hope you find this helpful. Take it easy. Peace out. I am very grateful that you watched to the end of this video. Please click one of the boxes to watch more of our content, and otherwise have a great day. Peace out.